Benj Meeks, the garden guy. Got my trusty coffee this morning. And I just wanted to invite you all into my planning process today. Today I am jumping into the process that I use for planning my edible landscapes. I'm totally redoing the landscaping around my house. Also putting in a garden in the backyard, and just wanted to invite you into that whole process. Hopefully you'll learn a few tips and tricks along the way. I've found it to be essential to plan out projects before I do them. If I skip this vital step, then it just doesn't work out. Like, I ended up either not starting a project, starting it, and then like halfway through I don't know where I'm at, what to do. It's so important to set up your plan of attack. Any successful business or adventure of any type needs to have solid planning behind it. I've come up with 4 main steps to use, 4 main key factors. They're almost like the corners of the building. They're the cornerstones for me of making sure a project gets done. You know, my name is Benjamin Meeks, but there was another Benjamin in history, Benjamin Franklin, who said that if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So true. I really believe it's true. We need to have a solid plan. Alright, here we go. Step number 1 is why. Why are you wanting to do this garden project or this edible landscape install or incorporate edibles into your landscape? What is the reasoning? What's the heart reason for why you want to do this project? For me, outside, I really want to beautify my landscape and make it look, just really good. I also want to grow food. For me, having healthy, nutritious, fresh food is so big for me. I love just being able to go outside, pick some tomatoes, berries, or whatever is in season. One last motivation for myself that I'll mention is that I love the idea of preparing the soil, stewarding the soil. To me, if we have a space that we are owners of, or even renters, if we have a space that we can take care of, it's so fulfilling for me to know that I'm stewarding that soil well and stewarding it towards abundance. That phrase has always gone through my head, especially the past 3 years. Just stewarding the soil towards abundance. That's a huge motivator for me. Now, your motivators are probably different than mine. There might be some similarities, but what you need to do is go ahead and write down why you want to do this. And really get down into the nitty-gritty of why. Like, try to dig deeper and deeper until you finally arrive at why is it that I really have this vision and I want to make it come into reality. Okay, that was step number 1. You got that. Step number 2 is what? What exactly are you going to do? Sounds pretty straightforward, but a lot of times if we skip this step, then we'll be halfway down the line and we're like, what am I doing exactly again? What's the big picture? So what you need to do is think about the big picture, the vision that you have for your edible landscape, for your garden, for your windowsill, herb garden, whatever your project you are wanting to do. Go ahead and write down like the big picture, the vision that you have. Just sit down, think about it, imagine the ideal scenario, and then describe that by writing it down. I keep on saying write down because I've learned that writing down can be so helpful to actually get projects done. Actually, it's been proven that we are 42% more likely to actually do what we say we're going to do if we write it down. So writing these things down is essential. Go ahead and write down the big picture vision of what it is exactly that you want to do. Now, I would encourage you all to go ahead and focus in only on 3 main aspects of your big vision. Only 3 at one time. For me, I have this big vision of, well, we got this edible landscape, and we have these gardens and the greenhouse and the raised beds and the chickens and everything. It's so exciting, but then whenever I actually think about it all, it's overwhelming. And I get really overwhelmed and I don't start with the first step. So what we need to do is we need to focus in on just a few aspects of the big vision at a time. Knock them out one at a time. my mom actually just told me recently that she watched a study where they said that really we as humans are only able to really focus in on 7 to 8 things at one time. For me, in the next week or so, my projects that I'm focusing on are the edible landscape in the front. Really want to make sure that happens. And then the garden in the back. And lastly, but not least for sure, is the vermiculture worm bin. Those are my 3 main projects right now that I'm really wanting to focus in on and get done. For you, just figure out those 3 main projects, write those down. And of course, the big picture is going to include more than 3. But I would encourage you to just focus in on and see which ones of those 3 you can actually feasibly do next. Now when it comes to determining what you want to do, I would encourage y'all to think long term. Think 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years down the road. For me, I know that this house is a great house for now, but I'm not planning to live here, super long term. I'm thinking more like 2, 3 years that I'll live in this house and then be able to sell it later after I do some more construction and work around and make it look beautiful. So I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking, okay, I know I want edibles in the landscape. I know I want it to look beautiful, to be beautiful and fruitful, but what is the next person going to want? They're going to want it to look good, to be presentable, to be low maintenance. So what I'm doing is I'm designing it in such a way that where there's also ornamentals as well as edibles, to where it's not so different from your average landscape that that folks are like, that's a little weird, I'm not going to buy a house. So think long term. Think long term. Also, in your beds, think, what, I'm going to be installing this raised bed, but maybe down the road I might need to move it or might need to change it up. So think long term. Think of the ramifications of what you're doing today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Let's say you might be renting. You might be wanting to put in a raised bed garden. I would really encourage you, if you're renting, own the land, still try to take care of that soil as if it was yours. That's going to be really honoring and respectful of your landlord, and I think the blessing of that is going to be, worth all the effort of really trying to dial in on, okay, what does my landlord want? What do I want? How can we kind of come together and make an agreement? Okay, so we have the why. We figured out why is what we want to do this. What is the core heart of what is going to get us up in the morning to where we're like, okay, like me, I got my coffee, I'm out there, I'm getting the project done. Or for you might be going to work and you come after work and you're tired, but what's going to be the core motivations that you can think about and remember that will get you out there and get the project done? We've talked about the what. What is it exactly that you're wanting to do? What is the big picture, and how can we narrow that down into 2 or 3 main projects that can get us out the door, get us going? My dad always gave me the advice of Stephen Covey. He passed it along to me, and that is that if you have a lot to do, if you have all these projects and it's kind of feeling overwhelming, then try to focus in on finding out the big chunks, the big rocks first, and then you go down from there in the smaller rocks. Those truths apply to life, but they also apply to any type of project or garden install. If you have to think about, okay, what are the big chunks, the big rocks that need to happen first before the next steps can happen. Like for me, I know that in the backyard, to put that garden in, I'm going to need a lot of mulch, manure, compost, more seeds. These are big chunks for me. Like, I know that I need these materials. One thing that's really helped me over the years is making tokens, making like almost signposts of projects, to where I know that I can look at and feel something that reminds me, okay, I'm actually doing this. And for me, one thing that has done that for me is this right here. This says Benja's Garden. It's from my brother Caleb and sister-in-law Christina. They made it for me a while back, and they actually made it after I had my original CSA garden where I was growing vegetables for families in the community. But one thing that this is doing for me right now is I can look at this and see it and know, okay, someday this is going to be a plaque and it's going to be put out in my garden before I even have it, you know. And just having that tangible, like I can feel this, look at it, having this and being able to know, okay, it's happening. Like this is real. This is not just an idea. It's gonna happen. Now I don't even have the garden yet, but having that as a token, as almost like, you know how the pioneers they would go out into the west, and then they would have this stake, and they would stake in the ground whenever they were claiming their territory and nail it down. You know, it's like that for me. Having some kind of physical representation of what I'm going to do, this project, is super helpful for me, and maybe that'll be helpful for you. Okay, before we go into step number 3, I'm gonna pop outside because I'm getting a little antsy. I've always loved being outside. I'm gonna get outside, walk around, and show you all some stuff while we go over step number 3. Here we go.